Welcome. This is the January 8th OpenZFS production user call. We have Greg, Jan, Steve, Mark, Stu, myself, Michael, and Katja's just rolled in. Welcome. Let's see. I just want to lead with something. So I'll read it somewhat verbosely. Somewhat unexpectedly, the year 2025 is the single greatest year for Latvian and open source cinematography. Some of you may have seen that at the Golden Globes. The movie Flow from Latvia, in conjunction with some French and Belgians, got the #1 place in animation up against the big studios, and it was rendered fully in Blender. And I believe I've seen articles which flat out said Blender is not ready for feature-length cinematic use. So I am trying to determine what file system and OS they rendered that on. I hope they're using ZFS. And there's a great talk more about the animation steps from last year's Blender conference. And perhaps I'll discuss it more at the upcoming conference, I believe in September. So that was historic. I'm very proud as a Latvian American to see that and as an open source nerd. So if they happen to be using ZFS, mind blown. Did anyone else catch that? Has anyone seen the film?
I have not yet. No.
Okay, it is now streaming on Amazon. They scrambled to get it up there. His previous film, uh, Away, is also there. They are a bit Miyazaki-like, but not entirely, and they are without dialogue. So that connected with people and, say, flood victims in Spain and Sevilla and such, absolutely related to a movie about a big flood. So that is kind of cool. Check it out. And it beat out a bunch of big studio sequels. Inside baseball, there was another makefs-t bug that I found where if you had something like a FIFO or a devfs inside a directory, you want to make a ZFS image out of it would core dump. Mark found that, sees that, oh, it did work on UFS. He just fixed it. Bless you, Mark J. And Greg, you had a question. Is Direct.io coming in the next OpenZFS release? Jan, it sounds like you saw it in the minutes of the leadership call.
So that there was work on it, but if I remember correctly, it's not yet finished. There's no deliverable yet.
So Greg, did you see it in potential release notes or just not quite there? Or just new and exciting?
My friend said that, uh, hey, you have those liquid NVMe cards. Not sure if you've been following, but OpenZFS 2.3 will have some new Direct.io stuff coming.
Got it.
So it's secondhand info, but yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I'll do a quick search here, which I'm sure some of you have done. OpenZFS. Direct. Oh, and while I do that, and welcome Daniel.
Hey,
Steve, are you still looking for actually you have access. How are you doing on subtitles and closed captioning for the event?
I've got a little tied up on the holidays. Did
I hear you.
did finish a few, and also I've kind of figured out a good workflow to sort of do some like pre-processing on them first, and so some of them I'll sort of just clean up in rough format in bulk, and then go through them in detail as I can.
Did you find search and replace to be of any use to you, or not so much?
I wound up doing a bunch of regex inside of a Rust
Oh,
file
wow.
and just
Okay.
running it through that. I get pretty frustrated with escaping things in regex, and so I just found something that worked.
Got it. Cool. Do you have off the top of your head, do you know which videos you've gone through from the summit?
um, whew, I don't.
No worries. Okay.
I can put them in the chat. It won't be hard for me to look up.
Okay, sure. Why not? Just and I'll put in the public docs here. Thank you, Steve, for helping with Summit CC. Oh, my typing is. Oh, Let's do with so come on. Okay, and I found the direct IO support ticket from Brian, which has been merged, but is it scheduled for release? That remains to be seen. Let me put that in the doc here.
And the other thing to look for is just because the infrastructure is included in the next release does not mean that the performance gains are available and the code is actually reachable outside of test cases.
Right. You want to have your cake and eat it too? Is that the take? Daniel, have you been following DirectIO at all?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, let's
I,
all educate ourselves ever so briefly. So here's the description. Well, always. I'm sure. And naturally, does this apply to all OpenZFS platforms or just Linux or what?
It has to be tied into the VFS, but FreeBSD provides the system call interface too, so you can open a file with ODirect. It just means something different on every operating system
Okay.
and file system.
so is the use case here, the main use case is for backups that you don't want to, uh, you know, get the arc dirty? I
But
mean, we can
that's
sort of do that already with caching, right? So I guess it's something else then.
Hmm. Uh, if someone wants to dig up uh, the RC release candidate on the next release, go ahead and let's look at it together and see if that's on the list. But otherwise, let's move on. Again, thank you, Steve. Quick show of hands. Are there any who have heard of the last October user and developer summit? Do you think you'd want to rinse and repeat that? Or Keypoint be a sponsor? Gently nudging at you, Stu.
It's NAB time, baby.
Oh yeah. Okay. What are the dates on NAB?
April ends April 9th, so 6th to
Cool.
9th or something like that.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. If for those in these circles, the National Association of Broadcasters conference, and I'm guessing Vegas once in
Yep.
for tradition, etc., is a heck of an event. There's a storage presence. There's some compute presence, a whole bunch of hardware from dollies to you name it, to whatever. So it's a fun one, and I've found that one can fly in early and fly out the same day and not have to spend a night in Vegas. So if that works for you, I do encourage that.
That's
It's
funny.
April 6th to the 9th.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, it's a thing. And the Black Magic multiple booths exhibits were the size of like a football field. It was crazy.
They've cut back dramatically.
Have they now? Okay.
Yeah. They're
In
still
Vegas.
the largest footprint, but yeah, we've got a 800 square foot booth that's right between Dell and HP and Open Drives, and
Sweet. Okay. So
all the storage guys are right. All the storage and compute guys are in the West Hall. Sorry, not the West Hall, South Hall.
got it. Stu's company is exhibiting. Okay, we are blessed with a presence of Daniel and Katya. Do I understand you have some Zelta news?
Mm, so I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
not really. I'm working on the async cluster thing. There's another project. I forget. Clara wrote an article about it, but basically it just does the failover mechanism, and then there's another, you know, let's say semi-automatic failover mechanism in the VM Beehive scripts, which is pretty awesome actually. And yeah, and Zelta, I think so. There's the Zelta twin idea that I don't know, Michael. You were talking about monitoring the written property, and then that with simple bits of metadata and some smart blocking and stuff, you could have a pretty nice stream of backups, and you could have a pretty nice back and forth cluster because you're never snapshotting if you're only snapshotting on one side, say because the other side is read only, then you can simply set up two replication processes to replicate against each other and then have a rigorous process of locking one as read only and then starting the VM or using the data set in the opposite pool. So you have a pair of ZFS data sets. Both are wired. Let's say VMs are wired to start up. And if you have a Zelta lock, Zelta unlock type system, which one is read only and which one isn't? The one that isn't read only starts getting snapshotted and replicated to the opposite side. That means that we all stop to move our data sets and we do this dance of it's on, then we're going to replicate, then we're going to shut one down and then replicate over. If that work is happening continuously or semi-continuously, and then you ramp up the frequency, you've already got 99.9% of the work done for you when you're ready to do that. Then it's just a matter of setting read only, wait for the next replication, boot on the other one. And since in real life, and I know we love live migrations. Everybody loves live migrations, but in real life, you have to reboot a server every few months for security patching if you care about it. Unless you're running satellites. I understand. I've got a buddy who runs satellites.
In space?
Yeah, in space.
Okay, yeah.
Satellites in space. Yeah, and he insists that he wants to never reboot. And then you want live migration. But I do like to patch my VMs. So yeah, so I want to. So anyway, this is possible with Zelta right now, with a little bit of tweak to the envs and use the policy manager. You can run them on two machines, and then on your backup servers, you run it against both, and you're never going to get clobbered. You're never going to get an error because regardless of which of the twins, and I call it Zelta twin, which of the twins the server's actually running on, it's never going to snapshot on that, but it's always going to check for that written property like Michael told me to. So ZFS accidentally created a very cool asynchronous structure cluster mechanism that makes it really easy to do failovers while not changing a thing about your backup servers. So there's the twin servers that you fail over to, and there's the backup servers that synchronize from both.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And because snapshots are basically a cryptographic chain, and you never make a snapshot on the passive spare, the warm spare, you can simply replicate from both of those. And the reporting process just says when the last snapshot was. Now, of course, there is, the fear of the split brain and stuff like that. Well, right now this is semi-automatic. We're not going for fully automatic. This quarter anyway. But Zelta also has the ability to have an initiating host, and then have a third party. So for example, like a nice OpenBSD box that has Zelta on it, and no other software on the two VMs. So this would work with Proxmox, and it should work with OmniOS and anything else.
Interesting, because you're using awk and you're using the written property, and ZFS is
Exactly.
ZFS.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some differences in OmniOS, but the errors I've received are just like little warnings. So
Right. Fundamentally, it's still the same
yeah,
user-facing syntax.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that the article
So
in chat that you were mentioning, the HA? I'm not super feeling it, but I've been
oh,
searching this. So,
Z-rep, yeah,
uh,
Z-rep. That's it. So it does that is a tool that's very much focused on that and has a pretty good approach to failover.
oh, with some notion of failover. Okay, cool.
I mean, again, I mean, it's always going to be asynchronous to some degree with ZFS, unless it's backed on,
Sure, sure.
Gluster or something else that makes your life miserable.
So
No,
yeah,
not Z-REPL, not Z-REPL, Jan.
Z rep. Okay, Z rep.
It's
Not to be
it's
confused with. Yeah, okay.
not to be confused with. Yeah.
Uh, I
So
just for our audience, I cannot emphasize enough that the written property is God's own property insofar as it lets you know if anything is changed since the last snapshot. And if nothing
yeah,
is
By the
changed,
way,
you know you're good. You know
yep.
you're
if you wanted to vastly increase the overhead of sampling that, how hard would it be to
yes, yeah.
find the part where it's written and put a static dtrace trace point there, which only is in the path. Basically, call this function if the written property changes from 0 to 1 or larger than 0. And then you
Yeah.
could have a dtrace probe which just waits for this event, finds which dataset that is, and starts the replication off without having to architect a proper communication channel.
So I was talking to the great and powerful Rob at BSDCam last year, and he is one of his things that he wants to get out the door at some point. I've been following the PRs and chats, and I haven't seen any work on this out there yet. But basically, just a continuous replication mechanism, where the stream just stays open and continuously replicates. Um, yeah, I don't. I wonder. That would also be a pretty pretty amazing uh, pretty amazing thing, because then you don't need the Zelta overhead or the replication tool overhead of tracking the snapshot names, because it's part of a yeah, because the stream just stays open, and when there's a new snapshot it starts sending it.
Uh,
So that
oh,
I'll
so
be
it would still
excited when
have the
that.
milestones of snapshots, in your opinion?
Yeah, snapshots are. I don't think snapshots are going away. I think
Okay.
that for the copy on write structure, I think that I don't see ZFS becoming a fully clustered system. I think it's
And
always going to be snapshot based.
got it. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing in this whole notion's come up over and over the years. But if there's a shortest path to that, let's explore it. And that, dare I say, then simply ZFS takes some responsibility for managing snapshots, be it through channel programs or otherwise, as opposed to external to ZFS.
Mhm.
Is that an accurate-ish statement?
I don't think so.
So then what
It
would
would
be
be something
different
external
inside of
driving it
ZFS?
and setting it up, and then that piece would basically load the policy, and it wouldn't be persistent, and because you don't want to teach ZFS how to dial another system. You want something in user space to set that connection up and then basically say, start an ongoing replication stream on that file descriptor. Have fun.
But ongoing in the context of actual snapshots. So what's the mechanism
Either
in that file
snapshots
descriptor?
or either, so it's something similar to just one replication stream after another over the same TCP or SSH pipe or whatever. So Unix socket pair, whatever is used, it shouldn't matter as long as it is a fast byte stream, reliable and bidirectional. So that basically ZFS can run its replication. It just wouldn't stop, but it would end this replication stream like it would between snapshots and then wait for the next. And I've never tried to replicate bookmarks. I know that you can use them as a starting point to resume a transfer thing, but I don't know if about really replicating between bookmarks so that you could have some named entity with a bit less overhead than a full snapshot, but snapshots aren't that expensive. It's releasing them which is expensive.
Yeah.
Or that's asynchronous.
Okay, so as a user, Daniel, if you ran the zoo and could just belt out a syntax, would it be a send of the data set, and would you need to specify an actual snapshot, or you simply say whatever's recent and coming on this snapshot, this data set, fire it off to the other to the destination and sit back comfortably?
I think realistically you probably need a source bookmark and snapshot and first snapshot because you have to assume that the chain is going to be broken sometimes.
Yeah.
So either
Let him
a
finish.
resume token, so either a resume token or a first, the current snapshot, and then away it goes. I think, yeah. Then anytime there's a new snapshot, it would keep running. That's how I would theorize that it works. And also, like, because I think there are some questions like, do you want everything intermediate between the latest matching snapshot and and what's new, or just the new ones as they roll?
Wouldn't continuous kind of, well, granted, but continuous assumes you've done your housekeeping and homework and you want to just jump into continuous, so you want everything.
Well, I
Not
mean,
really.
if you go back
Go ahead, Stu.
if you go back to start, I've got 40 snapshots.
Right.
A is my baseline. Here, ZFS send initialize. Here's my starting point. Everything, all snapshots beyond this are referencing from there.
Right. Yeah, if you might have 300 ahead of you, but you really just want to get the replication moving, or you want all 300 in between. I think that needs to be there needs to be some decision making there. And
Absolutely.
The way to do that would be to have
you start from your initial, baseline times zero, snapshot zero, and then you replicate everything. Or you might get sexy and say, I want evens to go to the East Coast, I want odds to go to the West Coast.
Yeah, so what you need is a fairly efficient way to notify user space about snapshot creation, which we have with the ZFS events, and then you can need an interface to basically say, on that file descriptor I already gave you, start the replication from to BAM, so that you get the notification that this new snapshot exists, and then you decide where the kernel should now replicate it to. So that you have a policy decision in user space and the data flows through one ZFS to the other.
so you think this
SSH?
is hackable? This is hackable with no changes to the ZFS kernel stuff, you think?
No, I think it would help if you could have basically Rod implemented a patch around 2000, I think 16 or 17 to change array, send and receive, do I/O instead of reading and writing to user space on whatever descriptor is there. You could then register a file descriptor for the I/O, and then ZFS would do it internally by just writing to that file descriptor from inside the kernel. The idea at the time was to use the TCP socket, but anything with socket-like semantics, including a TCP socket with KTLS, should technically work if someone unleashes some necromancy on that patch, because it's a few years old, but
Do you
it
have a
was a
link to
fairly
that
small
patch?
patch at the time.
Do you have a link to that?
The minutes have it. I don't have
Oh,
it.
well, let me give you some free of charge minutes here.
But put a link to his slide deck, which I think has the link to the
Do you recall who
doc.
that was? That shouldn't be too hard to find. Rod. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he was doing a whole bunch of WAN replication
And
goodies, and there was a
who
BSD
was
camp
basically
doc.
when
Rod.
his use case, I think, was SSH CPU bound doing this and moving 128 kilobyte blocks unbuffered over a pipe into an SSH process. Yeah, that's not going to be fun, which all of us have probably experienced the first time we had a faster than gigabit link for replication.
I found a video of it, but not.
Mhm.
I found a video of it, but not yet the conference talk link. So anyway, yes, I do recall that, and it did kind of
And
splat
if you then,
land.
instead of using it for one send operation, you could enqueue basically multiple send operations at least, or you get busy if it's not yet done, so that you could, just tell it to please send the next replication over an already established connection. Okay,
And
2018.
yeah, how far along did he get? I recall this being a thing, and then everyone just kind of scratching their heads, and then what did we, where
I
did we
think
go
it
from
was never
there?
upstream, because back then upstreaming things was a lot harder.
Okay.
And so it brought it away and was never. Here's the slide deck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. There we go. Copy link. So
Because
Daniel, are you
especially
familiar with
when you
that
do
work?
a new snapshot every few seconds, even if it's not long lived, you don't want to ramp up your connection every few seconds. I guess you could argue that you can use a complicated protocol like Quick to handle that for you, but that costs you all the TCP focused optimizations in the kernel space. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
and the nice thing is that the kernel doesn't care what kind of file descriptor it is, as long as it behaves correctly. It could be a file, it could be a pipe, it could be a Unix socket pair, it could be a TCP socket, or something new one eventually. Maybe a VidIO VSOC, which would actually be a good use case of this kind of thing if you want to replicate between guests on the same hypervisor or something.
Let's
And he
see if
claims
this
that,
is still around.
here's the
Oh,
link hidden in the slide deck. But yeah, let's see.
I'm curious.
There
Let's
was a
see.
patch on his FreeBSD, hosted on his
Yeah,
FreeBSD web
it's
space.
right here. Let's see if it's still. Did you find it? And let's see if it's
I
still
tried to
valid.
click on it, but the link,
Not found. Oh, but maybe
yeah,
the
well, it
20.
stripped the .diff.
Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Boom.
It loads.
There it is. Okay,
Just
let me
takes
fix
this.
my link.
As
Fix my
he wasn't
spacing.
lying when he said that it was a short patch.
Yeah. Okay. Daniel, do you recall that talk? Were you sitting popping popcorn and following along?
The Rod talk.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. We talked like we were talking about it, and the proof of concepts relationship to whether it could work with KTLS and whether it could work between FreeBSD and Linux.
Uh,
Um, and I think I talked to Clara a little bit about it, or Alan
Yeah.
specifically, and I think they were, yeah, I forget where that got
That's not
stuck.
long. Okay. Uh,
um, there
let's,
just isn't enough code there to change the replication format. So it should just work with an unmodified destination as long as it just expects the replication stream over the file, so over whatever stream. So if you run netcat on one end and a patch system on the other end, it should just work.
okay. Would anyone like to soft shepherd this and investigate, and or Daniel just revisit that conversation with Claire and like, hey, remember we talked about that thing? Like
So
what where'd we leave off with that?
what's missing, I think, is
Yeah.
a back channel telling you, oh, well, some I'm done with this without closing it all. So we're sorry to start the next replication over the same file descriptor.
Okay. And what would management of this arrangement look like and state tracking, etc. Okay.
So for what you're describing, a way to reliably be informed that a data set was modified to start the snapshotting with a controlled maximum rate so that you don't do one every few microseconds on an all-flash pool because, yeah, that's going to tank performance if you try to, but maybe every few seconds instead of, realistically speaking, milliseconds. Then once you have two snapshots, you fire off the next replication. Yeah, just do an incremental replication stream from last confirmed to target, or
And how
do
do
it
you
one by
track
one
success
if you
and
want to
failure?
film it. Yeah, of course, you have to record that. And yeah, it could be argued that if you fall far enough behind, then you maybe don't want to replicate with everything, but you want to just replicate between certain sets so that you don't delay the release of storage reference by still replicating snapshots
Hmm.
so that you lose granularity in your history, but you will converge faster. And yeah, so that's a hacky way of doing it from the outside.
Daniel, does that sound a bit like what is periodically collectively envisioned?
Um, yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
It's slightly over my head. I think I,
Well,
I think I wrapped my brain around it better uh, a few months ago.
did you keep those post-it notes? Are they still all stuck together with a paper clip like one does? Goodness. Cool.
Um,
Well, it keeps coming up. Let's just put it there to either clarify the status of and accept or reject. No, obviously with modification is needed, but do we go down this road at all, or just say no, we do not because of these reasons? And I bet Stu and Greg are thinking, oh wow, we sure need that and we'll help out. But I could be wrong. Or Katya, did you get a better, clearer understanding of it a few months ago that uh, beats all of our collective recollection of pre-pandemic 2000? 18, pre-lockdown rather.
Well, we weren't on ZFS. We were just we had one server. Yeah, we had a couple like practice servers that we had ZFS
At the
for
time,
years.
cool. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we didn't start until after, so we did not see this in real time. I was looking into this last year the Jan stuff last year specifically.
Jan stuff or Rod stuff?
Oh, sorry, the
No
Rod stuff
worries.
last year. Yeah.
Well, okay. There it is resurfaced. Uh, he put a bunch of work into it. I might check in with him, but it may also be like, what's wrong with you people? Why does it take you so long to do anything? Package based. Okay, moving on. What other topics do we have? Katya, do you have questions while you have all these folks at your disposal?
Well, so we were discussing about the delta mirrors with Daniel,
Hmm.
and I was wondering if you knew what would be the best way that we could mirror database.
So
Uh,
I guess the question is sort of application versus replication and
Yeah.
what your experiences are and when you use one versus another or which databases are good for, application level replication versus ZFS replication. Because with I guess I don't know if MySQL there's ever a situation where you can do a replication option. And I don't know
right.
what are the because this is beyond me because I'm not like a Kubernetes. I don't do much with Kubernetes and stuff like that. Like how is this managed in bigger clustering environments?
So one
So,
one of my first questions, are you talking a transactional database, or a tracking database, or a data warehouse?
Right. I guess that's the question. If it's a warehouse, I guess then it has to be ZFS and it's the whole thing, right?
Well,
And then
you can I've done it with warehouses because they only get data loaded once a day. And
right.
you can snapshot before and after
Okay,
to
right. Then ZFS is
and then the remote side will pick it up, as a recycle or a reload. Um, but transactional, depending upon how you have your data structure set out and the actual files can get really ugly really fast if you don't let the application itself manage the replications. So it
right.
knows transaction 124 made it all the way through, 125 is in flight. That's where you
For,
get those weird type of scenarios.
right. I guess for MySQL, what we have now is, it's basically just standard one way, which is only writes in one way. You can't write on both of the
Right.
databases, so it is a stressful move to switch to the secondary. Uh, with an application level replication there. And I don't know if that's always true for MySQL or if you need to have, or if people develop tools to do it in both directions so that you can, I don't know, use them both at once or what. Maybe this isn't CFS. Yeah, I guess I guess that's
I haven't done bidirectional MySQL replication in a while. I have done Postgres and I have done Mongo. Um,
Mongo. I guess Mongo is sort of built for it out of the box, right? So one
yeah,
of our, one of our machines is on. We do have some appliances on Mongo, and they say you can pretty much, you can run a few, and they'll all chat to each other and figure it out.
yeah. They're
I guess that's
they're
what it's
designed to be
for,
cloudy brained.
right? So then I can, yeah, right. So I guess it's partially up to the database, and then PostgreSQL. There's like I don't know, would it be possible to run like a Nextcloud and multiple Nextcloud instances with
Mhm.
PostgreSQL that replicate back and forth?
Yeah.
So not really. Postgres is not natively multi-master capable. You have to have some kind of arbiter in between to basically some kind of proxy to go through, and that does the isolation. And then you have to have something like Patroni do the master election. And basically what you do is you elect a new master, and then the followers replicate up to that and keep in sync and keep as close as possible. And when the master dies, you elect a new master, and the followers replicate to that. And transactions aren't acknowledged by the master until the quorum has been reached for replication. So that if the master dies, the remaining quorum will still have that transaction as the last one, which, of course, it does a number on your transaction latency, but that's what you have to do.
There's no such thing as a stress-free database failover, is there?
What do you mean by stress-free?
I mean,
Uh,
I guess a ZFS, like if it's yeah, so if it's ZFS, then and it's truly a fail. If it's actual fail, then you're losing data. I mean, it would have to be, yeah, then you're losing data. It has to be a live replication. And then yeah, and then the
or,
multi
or you do split transactions
split
upstream.
transactions, right?
So you go,
But
hey,
even
I'm
that,
writing to A and B, both A and B are separate infrastructures, and then you have a reporting that can chain between the two, whichever one is deemed best.
That's the same as sharding, right?
Yep,
That's another, yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
yeah. All right. Yeah, so yeah, it's so if the application isn't explicitly, I mean, the application has to be explicitly built for any of the possible solutions we're talking about, except for live replication with multi-master or with some sort of master promotion mechanism.
even that
Um,
requires application awareness and a proper integration between application, network, and storage. So because
right.
you have to cut the connections to put it from basically from clients to the wrong nodes, even though they used to be the right nodes. So you have to have some kind
Yeah,
of a point of enforcement so that if a client loses, yeah,
yeah. So
it's
this is another reason why hot failover is less interesting to me because there's still all these other there's all these other issues that could happen with with your beautiful, perfect live failover system, and you still need all of this, secondary plus application level, failover stuff on
Yeah,
top of it all.
the plumbing doesn't change.
Yeah,
Make sure that the data is good.
right.
but let's say in a containerized world, you don't have to live migrate existing processes as much as you have to have a fast enough failover to persistent storage.
Right, right,
And then
right. So the
having
storage is
this,
clustered and
okay, I
then,
have
yeah,
a replicated persistent volume, and now I can quickly move this isolated container workload from this host to that host. I can unload a host without interrupting my service at a higher level because the service isn't provided by any single jail container, what port, pick your terminology, zone. Instead, it's provided by through some load balancer, which will then be used by an application which knows how to quickly reconnect instead of following the cult of the eternal TCP connection.
Right.
And once you are at that point, you don't need some kind of distributed storage. You need fast individual storage nodes, and the application is in charge. Eternal, not persistent, but yes.
Hmm.
Thank you. I multi-processing here and work till 5. So from a ZFS perspective, Daniel, we might be in agreement that, wow, it is sure comforting and dare we say, these are the tools we trust most. And I've at times thought I trust ZFS more than I trust the underlying OS that it's bolted onto. So yeah.
The other thing you can do, because I've done this in the past too,
Yes,
is you
sir.
can do your live backups to a separate ZFS space and snapshot those and use that for your replication to get back really, really fast.
Right.
So
Right.
you're not, the application is using live set of disks, you're backing up to a snapshotable set of disks on
Right.
host
There's
and do it that way.
Yeah, of course there are different failover modes, and you always need the ZFS, replica of whatever it is, no matter what, because you
Yep.
can get a perfect, beautiful live, live replication multi-master system, and then data gets in there that you don't want,
Yep.
that needs to be backed out. So you always need ZFS in addition.
That's what
Yeah,
kept me
Backups
up
are
till
not
5 in the morning.
replication, and replication alone isn't a backup.
right. And yes, that's put perfectly.
What was the first
Well,
part?
thanks for,
Replication is not a backup? Or was
yeah.
that all of it?
Backups are not replication,
Okay.
Backups are
and
not
replication alone is not a backup.
Yeah. It all comes down to what risk are you trying to insulate yourself against?
Right.
What is the value of accepting or correcting that risk? And what are you insuring yourself against? If it's going to put my company out of business if I'm down for 3 minutes, I have a different thing than if I can be down for 3 days.
Yeah.
And all of that feeds back into the overall network, hardware, storage, application architectures.
Yeah. Well, always a good conversation to have every year or so. Think about, all these ideas and where all my instances stand with them. But,
Okay, I have a little
at the
demo
worst,
if anyone still has the mental capacity for one.
And what would you like to demo?
Oh, nothing, just using a declarative configuration to migrate a FreeBSD jail using ZFS cloning from one base system to the next in a fraction of a second.
That sounds like a quick demo. Yeah, focus on the ZFS part, but sure, I will
Yeah,
stop
sure.
my share.
So joking aside, just finished that. It worked. So it's doo-doo. So can you read that size? Because I can't make it much smaller without you seeing lots of wrapped lines.
Works for me.
So
Others.
I have the jail loan. And now I will restart the jail as if nothing has happened. And nothing has happened other than the jail getting stopped, the file system mounted, everything. Okay, now I change the version. So that to FreeBSD 14.2 patch level 0, which is how I tag the release so that it's consistent.
I like
And
that.
now I restart the jail again. This time, because there will be more output, I pipe it into less. Okay, so it stopped the jail, stopped any services in there. Okay, there was nothing running. Then I unmounted all the file systems. And here is where the CFS specific stuff happens. So in this block here, you can see that it found that the unmountable ZFS file system created for the jail already exists, but it has to destroy the clone for the root file system of the jail and then the other file systems inside the jail as well, which are tagged with this tag. And then it replaced them with new clones. It made sure that there was nothing mounted here. Okay. Then it again made sure that the device file system root sets are loaded. It verified that the real persistent file systems exist, which aren't cloned. It mounts all the ZFS file systems sorted by mount point, so in the right order to assemble the tree. Then it mounts the device file system, which isn't ZFS related, and it's done. And if I do that in the opposite time, oops, let's do that and rely on Smart Shell. Bam. So yeah, that's about it. So the ZFS stuff for that. Why don't I look into the...
Those are your scripts to handle this?
Yes. And here's the source for that, ZFS. So for the creation, it's a shell script. I've shown that approach before, where I have a ZFS channel program, which is run from inside a here doc, so that the current shell consumes the output of the ZFS channel program. And the output is an array of lines, and the lines are then split at tops into arguments and given to shell functions, because the Lua's program is part of the same script. So the shell script decides what it injects into the channel program. So it runs in the kernel, it can trust the output. I just call it as a function here. And then basically, after splitting, it gets put into these functions. Let me make even longer lines. Sorry for that.
6 parameters, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've documented them, good.
Yep. So here we have a function which just takes the parent data set common to all jails and its mount point, something like my pool / jails for the data set here, and the mount point is something like /jails or wherever you want to put it. And there is a function which gets called just to report that nothing has changed, that the parent exists. That could also be silent by default, of course. But during development, it's quite nice to know that something has been detected as already accomplished and everything is fine. So for each FreeBSD jail, I create a ZFS file system which only exists as a container to contain child data sets. So it has the jail mount point as its mount point, but it's set to unmountable, which means it exists, it has a mount point property, but it cannot be mounted. Instead, inside of that, as direct children in the ZFS dataset tree, exists a flat list of ZFS file systems with the actual content and an explicit mount point. I do it like that, despite it being human unfriendly, because it avoids the problem of having to untangle the parent-child relationship when I want to rip something out. So if my root file system is a clone and I want to destroy that clone and replace it with a new clone, if all my other data sets, including the ones I want to keep, something like, let's say, /home, vardb, pg, sql 15, whatever, are ZFS children of that data set, then I have to move it out of array and build a new tree up. That's annoying and error prone to do. Instead, it's easier to just do the mounting sorted by mount point and ignore the whole problem. Because I don't have any relationship. It's just a flat set of file systems. So it looks ugly, I totally agree, but I use UUIDs as name components because otherwise, when I reuse a ZFS dataset name, almost all replication tools will just explode on me because they will identify the replicated file systems by name and then try to find a point of divergence, so the last snapshot they have in common. And of course, if I have clones from different origins, we will never share any common ancestor to start replication from. So the replication will always fail. And then you have a broken replication and thereby backup. And instead of convincing everyone to please fix this in the replication tools and backup tools, and then wait for everyone to upgrade to that so that I don't get to reuse names. I just say, okay, I can't reuse names. I don't want to handle number collisions with small numbers. Let's just use UUIDs with UUID version 1 with the MAC address of the host in there and a timestamp and some randomness. They really shouldn't collide. So I can just make that a fatal error.
Jan, does that also apply to mail server number 3, or are those unique names that you have to force? Are the parent data sets also UUIDs, or are they human readable names that happen to have UUID child data sets?
It's 2 levels of UUIDs.
Okay, so even mail server number 3 is E609.
Yes, because
okay,
if I could do it like that, but then if you destroy it, it would break the replication. Which means it couldn't be an easy way. I would kind of have to either never destroy that data set so that it stays around, even when you destroy the jail, so that you would just accumulate data sets over time, even if they're tiny ones, or I would have to, make it so that you have to acknowledge, yes, I know that reusing, migrating a jail back and forth, let's say, oh, I have to unload the server and then I want to move the workload back. Yeah, I can't do that.
So
it's
you
not acceptable
showed,
in my opinion.
like libexec directory. What form will this take for the outside world, if any?
The scripts I will make eventually available, and then
Cool.
It will look like this. So you have a jail with multiple configuration files in it, split up, and then you just specify the origin, basically.
So is the wetware human looking in the jail directory and the mount point names to find friendly things that are familiar to them, like clone 01 and mail server 3?
Yeah, you still get human-friendly mount points.
Yeah.
But you don't get human-friendly dataset names.
So yeah, in my recent work with like nested VM images that are ZFS with FS tabs and disk labels, I suddenly agree fully that you might have to just go full globally unique on all the things and deal with it. because things can conflict right, left, and center, and
I mean,
suddenly, oh, I won't boot
the
because my FS
alternative
tab is
would be
slightly off
to
because it was briefly something else and blah blah blah. Go ahead.
the alternative would be to do something crazy like forced rollbacks, pretend that time's arrow goes both directions. We are in La La Land, and backups are not a thing. We're only doing replication, and I hope you have a fast pipe to your backup server, which is now at best a replication server because you're going to use it a lot,
Yep.
because you're going to just send full replicas to roll back to, and then that's not nice either.
Cool. I do look
So
forward to that. And it sounds like you hit a milestone on this, correct?
yes,
Excellent.
because I've
Congratulations.
fixed the part where it now can handle the changing the clones. So I create a thick jail, which is FreeBSD terminology for a jail with its own copy of a user land,
Yep.
which is not thin provisioned. And then I create thin jails from that. So if I now stop that jail, okay, it stopped. Scroll up so that I have the annoyingly long name.
Yep.
Then I do this. If this destroy -rv, bam, and it's gone.
Mhm.
And if I now start the jail again, we should see it be reassembled in seconds.
Yeah.
Bam.
With new UEIDs,
Yes.
and the human friendly name is still human friendly-ish. If you know where to look.
As you can see here during the clone, it detected that
Oh, there we
the
go.
stored UUID does not exist. So it deleted the stored UUID, generated a new UUID for the jail, and then created a new data set with that UUID.
Cool.
And this is a short form syntax, which just means this jail, and then there's a mount point within the jail, and the source is the human-friendly name for the
Yep.
jail, not the long data set name.
Yep.
That gets expanded by the cloning script into the actual data set, and then the snapshot. And just as an example, I used /etc and so on. Here in user local etc, clone those. And if we look, this is how it looks here. So first I define a bunch of defaults here. And this is the package-based query name. Okay, that's another FreeBSD specific feature of this. And then this is how I specify this, basically jail name, root file system, origin jail. Yeah.
No, I believe
So
Tiny
on.
is Yon specific, not FreeBSD specific.
No, the feature of package base is.
Package base, yes, but that's your name, Tiny, correct?
Yeah, Tiny is my name for
Yes, okay.
the set, but having a package query to describe which
Yep.
packages to install, that's
Yeah,
a
totally.
FreeBSD specific
Yes, cool,
feature.
love it. Yes, correct.
Not ZFS related. You could do the same over UFS or X4 or whatever.
Of course.
And
Well, cool.
then this jail gets also a set of data volumes, if you want, which are not cloned and are initially empty, like logging, the package database, the package cache and stuff, so that you could write to that, install new stuff, and whatever you have to.
Cool. Well, good work. Keep us posted. I look forward to something on the outside world. Anything else to share? There you go. Okay.
Not really.
Other questions, ideas, desires for 2025, funny jokes, t-shirt ideas. We are at an hour and 10, is that right? So yeah, it's been a lot of ground we've covered. I apologize that I'm kind of sleepy here, having fought a ZFS backed bookkeeping system with updates until 5 in the morning.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah, but still, the only challenge was just the sheer speed of it. It was an old machine that was a kind of a placeholder that gee, thanks to ZFS, it just chugs along and does the right thing, but it does it slowly. So I sit watching up those circular, goofy Windows progress bars that don't mean anything, but it worked. So yeah, ZFS, all the things. Anything else at this time, or shall we call it good? Who would like the honors, if you know what I'm referring to?
Like and subscribe.
Thank you, Jan. Well, take care, everyone. Happy New Year. Let's stay in touch. Yes, and Greg shared a humorous EC2 cost savings joke on the chat. Okay. Super. Take care, Katja, Greg, Jan, Daniel. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.